Hi, this is part 3 of the sensory systems lecture. Let me get the slideshow started. Okay, there's not a lot of notes on the olfactory system. Remember, olfaction is the sense of smell, and it's the one sense that the nerve impulse does not travel directly to the thalamus first from the sense organ, so or from the sensory receptors. So okay, so the human olfactory system contains bipolar neurons, which look like this, and all of those neurons extend from the olfactory epithelium, where the olfactory receptors are located, to the olfactory bulb. And you can see the olfactory bulb is connected to a facial nerve that carries the sense of smell to your brain, to the olfactory region in the cerebral cortex. So basically, in the olfactory bulb, you have these clusters of neurons called glomeruli. It's a weird word to say. It's not hard, it's just weird. Glomeruli. And each glomerulus receives signals from one type of olfactory receptor. So each glomerulus is specific to one odorant. And then taste and odor are both stimulated by molecules in the environment, um, either coming from food that we actually taste on our tongue, or coming from gases or liquids that we drink, or just gases in the air. But molecules from the environment um, stimulate the taste receptors and the olfactory receptors. The primary taste detected by humans are sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. Umami is the taste that I think some people call that savory. All right, and the way the tongue is organized is the papilla of the tongue, the little bumps on the tongue, um, are where the taste buds are located. So there are foliate papilla, circumvallate papilla, and I saw several times in the quiz questions where they asked which ones have the most taste buds, and it's the circumvallate that have the most taste buds. And then the fungiform papilla, they're located on different regions of the tongue. The foliate papilla are prominent protrusions on this light micrograph. So like these, okay? Um, all right, and you can see the foliate papilla are located like toward the back of your tongue in this region, on the sides of it. The fungiform papilla are located here, this area, and then the circumvallate papilla are located on the back, closer to the opening of your pharynx. And then the filiform papilla are the ones on the tip of the tongue, and they don't just detect taste, they detect they're very sensitive also to heat and cold. Pores in the taste pores pores in the tongue that allow tastants to enter, um, the taste pores in the tongue. So each taste pore allows the tastants, which is the chemicals from the environment, to enter, and basically will be those tastants will these nerve endings will sense those different tastants, those different chemicals from the environment. Okay, sound. A whole different thing. But the sensory nerves, the auditory receptors, the nerves that actually detect the sound, they are also like, there you go. Okay, like the olfactory nerves, they are bipolar neurons. Okay, so let's talk about sound. It's really very, very mechanical, this process. Sounds travel from the outer ears called the pinna, and then the ear canal is called the external auditory meatus in the skull, or you could just call it the external auditory canal. But that's the canal that the purpose of the pinna is to direct sound into this canal, and then the purpose of this outer external ear canal is to direct sound to the what we call the eardrum, which is the tympanum, and this is the eardrum. Okay, so sound travels from the eardrum into the middle ear, and basically it's because that eardrum um, causes pressure on the ossicles, and the ossicles are these three bones: the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. And those bones are vibrated by the tympanum, the tympanic membrane is also called the tympanic membrane. There is a couple of really good, there's a video that you can watch that shows the process of sound traveling through to the auditory nerve, and there's also like it's interactive tutorial that's these are both in the study plan. If you go to the study plan to the section on sound, you can find those. There's a link to the interactive tutorial is actually great. I went through it myself just for a review so that I would make sure to explain this to you, like, as well as I can. Um, so anyway, the sound, um, basically the malleus hits the incus and the incus hits the stapes. Um, these bones have other words too. The common name for the malleus is the hammer. The common name for the incus is the anvil. And then the common name for the stapes, as you can see from the shape, it's like stirrup shaped. So it's is the stirrup. And the stapes has a membrane here that attaches to the oval window. And is the oval window labeled? Yeah, well, it says it attaches to the oval window. The oval window is basically just the part. What happens is, if you can picture this this is like a drum, so it bangs on these ossicles every time sound waves travel and hit this and cause vibrations. It causes these ossicles to vibrate. And then basically, this bottom region of the stapes that attaches to the oval window pushes into the cochlea. It just causes it just is a pushing force, and it just pushes in a kind of in a vibrating way. It just goes in and out, and that basically pushes all the fluid, because there's like this fluid inside of the cochlea, and it's the movement of that fluid against hair cells that relays different information on the sounds that you hear to your auditory nerve and your cochlear nerve. So, okay, so it says sound travels to the middle ear, and it's the middle ear where you have your ossicles, which are the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. And the ossicles transfer the sound wave to the oval window. And then the organ of Corti is inside of the cochlea. So the organ of Corti is not labeled on here, but it's inside this cochlea. And the organ of Corti is the organ of sound transduction. It contains little hairs, and when the fluid in the cochlea moves against the little hairs, it causes the production of sound and can regulate different things like pitch and amplitude or volume of the sound. And another function, well, it's probably later on, but another function we're going to talk about is the function of these semicircular canals, that they function in equilibrium. So, and by the way, this is the eustachian tube, and this drains fluid from the middle ear. It drains fluid from the middle ear and the inner ear. All right, and sound waves, basically, a sound wave with a higher amplitude is a louder sound, and a sound wave with a lower amplitude, like this, is a sound wave with a lower sound. And frequency is how many of these waves pass in a given time. So here you would see one frequency, but I could draw like an even faster frequency would be this. And faster frequency is a higher pitch. It's going to be, oh, I can't believe I just did that. And then and then slower frequency, like you see already drawn on there in the black lines, um, dashed and solid, are going to be lower pitches, like a low. So high pitches are high frequency, and low pitches are low sounds are low frequency. And oh, okay, so it shows you more about the anatomy of the ear, and I like that they have the auditory nerve labeled there. I know they called it the cochlear nerve. There's a vestibulocochlear nerve, and then there's an auditory nerve, and that I don't think the vestibulocochlear nerve does have two ends, and the vestibular end does serve the semicircular canals, and the cochlear end is attached to the cochlea. But there's an auditory nerve that's a combination of all of the nerves that receive the sensory information and take that information to the brain. So I'm looking here to see if there's anything really more to say. This makes it a whole lot easier to see what happens on the inside. You can see the cochlea here, and you can see the region where the stapes presses against the opening of the cochlea and moves that fluid. So basically the fluid, here's your organ of Corti, and here's the hairs. The movement of that fluid vibrates the tectoral membrane, which compresses and distorts those hairs, and then those hairs send signals to the auditory nerve. Okay, so here's some notes on sound. That's good. In the human ear, sound waves cause the stapes to press against the oval window. That's what I was saying again. Saying to you, the interactive tutorial shows you that. It's so much easier when you can see it happening. But it basically just pushes back and forth against the oval window, and that pushes the fluid inside the cochlea. So vibrations travel through the fluid-filled interior of the cochlea. The basilar membrane that lines the cochlea gets continuously thinner toward the apex of the cochlea. So let's go back. This is the basilar membrane, which basically travels all the way into the cochlea, and it gets thinner toward the interior of the cochlea. So it's thicker on the outside and thinner on the inside. And because of that difference in thickness, it can detect different frequencies of sound. And different species of animals will be able to detect, different frequencies. Like we can detect frequencies